Right. And you could push them back if you push you. All right. Now, that is not bullying. But what we are about to talk about is when people take advantage of somebody else who might be of lesser strength or unable to defend themselves properly. That is bullying. And so that's a topic we're going to speak on tonight. So let me ask you to take your seats. And let me also ask the panel to come. You'd be, or may be very surprised to see who is coming up here this evening. All right, so let me say a few things about this panel. Come, Jen, come as well. All right, so the first person let me speak about is Brother Anthony. Brother Anthony is a school teacher by profession. And his experience as a school teacher is one which puts him at the forefront of this thing called bullying. And so he's not only a teacher and experienced it from being one of the administrators at the school, but he also has two little children who are themselves in school. So he's the father, he's a parent as well of children who are exposed to this kind of thing. Now, Anthony is a school teacher, but it doesn't only happen in school. It happens in the workplace, it happens in homes, it happens on the internet. You may have heard the term cyberbullying, all right? But we can't speak about them all tonight. All right, so Brother Anthony is a school teacher and he's speaking on the perspective of the school environment. Brother Ryan, most of you may know, is a police officer, and he's going to speak from this perspective of law. What can we do legally when this happens to us, or happens to our family, happens to our children? And I know, I'm glad Sister Yolanda is here as well. Sister Yolanda is also qualified and trained in law. So she may be able to give us some assistance where law is concerned. And Sister Michelle is employed as a counselor where she works. All right? She has a background in dealing with psychological issues, social issues, with people who come to where she works for advice, when they come for treatment, and so on. And so she's going to speak on tonight, and I'm using a slightly big word, it's two words in one, psychosocial effect of bullying upon children, upon parents, upon homes, just dealing with the psychology and dealing with what happens to persons who are influenced with this kind of thing socially, because you will hear that sometimes people will back into a shell when they are exposed to this kind of thing. All right, so these are the persons that we are going to hear from, and Sister Jenny is going to moderate this group of people and to questions that are raised. She would also record some things that we may want to ask the panel this evening, and she will engage them and yourself in questions and answers. Now, if you have a question that you would like to ask, and if you have pen and paper and you want to jot that down while the group is speaking, all right, you can do so, and just let Sister Eula know. She will collect those questions and answers, or at the end, we would allow you at some time to ask those questions. All right, so welcome this panel tonight. Welcome them with a round of applause, and I'll pass on to Brother Anthony.
Okay, so good night, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Pastor Jen, and good night, my panel and the church. So the topic is bullying. And as Pastor said, bullying seems to put its fingers into every aspect of society, in the home, workplace, church, in every part of the organization within the country and within the world. So I have the points here that we're going to touch on. So first of all, what is bullying? Possible signs of bullying. Number 3, types of bullying. Number 4, possible causes of bullying. Sources of bullying, which is we're talking about students and teachers. Number 6, signs of bullying and how to identify if a person is being bullied. And afterwards, Sister Michelle will come in at that point in time. Then I will come back in at point 7, what to do if you, who is a student, is bullied, or if you are a parent of a bullied child. Point 8, the MOE, Ministry of Education, view on bullying and what actually takes place if you have to report it. Brother Ryan will come in right before point 9. What you can do as a parent, a student, to stop and reduce bullying. And point 10, biblical principles on dealing with bullying. So next slide. So what is bullying? I have here, bullying is when someone is hurt by unwanted words or actions, usually more than once, and has a hard time stopping what is happening to them. So if we talk about bullying, you have to know what is a bully. So this is a person who bullies or intends to cause pain or hurt, either through physical harm or hurtful words by the behavior, and it does repeatedly more than once. So bullying has different forms. As we may already know, there are different ways people may cause bullying. And we talk about bullying basically with students from that point of view, but we will be able to understand when we hear the points that it even happens within our home, with our family members, in workplace. So all these points that we identify, and we'll be able to touch on something that you may have experienced in work or you've seen being experienced. So there's a direct bullying. Direct bullying can take place through physical abuse or verbal abuse, such as assault, physical or verbal aggression, making threats, calling persons names, persistent humiliation, teasing, sexual comments, and something called taxing, where students will see a next student, a smaller student, and try to ask him or her for money within the bathroom, within the classroom, throughout the school area. The other one is, second form of bullying is indirect bullying. So indirect bullying is where someone bullies someone behind their back. So there's not an actual physical attacker, but they will dirty their name. And someone, I want to say about Pastor Jen, and I hate her, and I'm telling Brother Ryan that, I hate her, she walks as if she is the person in charge, things like that. I don't like how she does speak. So that is actually what you would say, call as indirect bullying. So spreading false information, purposely not inviting them to group events. And sometimes we may think that that is not a form of bullying, but it actually happens a lot. Spreading secretive information, purposely excluding them from a group, vandalizing or damaging their possessions, and spreading false rumors. The third type of bullying is known as cyberbullying, and this is a form of bullying that actually takes place over the internet. And the reason why it is so popular is because anyone can sign up or make a fake account on Facebook, TikTok, and just start to dirty someone's name, harass, and this could take place by sharing memes. I don't know if you all know what memes are, but sometimes you hear a joke or a funny picture based on, like I said, a topic. So in case this person, he may put an image of some kind of rude or vulgar image around them, or sharing a humiliating photograph that they got in school or somewhere at home, right? So this cyberbullying actually takes place very often, sharing pictures on social media accounts, Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, even calling or MSN is a form of cyberbullying. So now that we understand what is bullying, what is a bully, the different types of bullying. We want to talk about the possible sources of bullying. And for now, we'll be talking about the sources of bullying comes from fellow students, teachers, parents, and the brothers and sisters or family members. So the first point for possible causes of bullying from students. Now, there are different things we look at, and I have come across over the years, seeing that students seem to be a bully when they may have a low self-esteem. That's one aspect of it, that they may be intimidated by someone who may be good-looking. You know, the girls may seem to harass another girl because they're pretty, or the boys may find it pretty. Even the guys may harass another girl or a boy because, you know, of the popularity aspect of it. Even when someone is being doing well in their classes, their exam, the grades, sports, sometimes you will see bullying taking place, again, because of someone looks a little different, maybe too skinny, oversized, the different hair color, country, nationality, appearance. Today itself, in a classroom that I was in, a child has a very bad cross-eye or cookie eye, and the students were making fun of the child and saying, you know, you can't see, I don't know where you're looking at when you're talking to me. And it's a very small boy, he's very skinny, and they were making fun of him. And I had to come across to the students, but then one of the girls who heard this was taking place stood up for him and was saying, you know, you can't be doing that. You know, he's just a little boy, like part of your classmate, things like that. And I was glad to see that, because I actually told them that I have to talk about bullying today, and I will use this as an example, right? So this is what I recognize as a form of bullying from the students, a source that somebody may be intimidated. And we see that even in our workplace, with our family members, neighbors. Okay? Now, we have environment, or home life, or community, culture, music. Sometimes we have to, when we look at the family members, when we call in sometimes students who give in trouble, and sometimes you realize parents are very aggressive, you know, and they realize they're talking, or when they're bad talking, teacher bad talking to students, and they understand, oh, maybe this is why a student may behave a particular way, and we take it for granted. So sometimes you want to jump on the student, but we don't really see the home environment that they're coming from. Music. I could speak about music as one form of aggression. When I was younger, I would listen to a lot of heavy rock, metal, and different type of music. And, you know, we friends will be being rough and wild, and they'll say they in a mosh pit kind of thing. So sometimes you'll run up to somebody, hit them just so. And, you know, sometimes even though you're a friend, but sometimes you may go a little overboard. And sometimes you take it for granted. As I got older, I realized that music does have an effect on you. And if you realize that you will hear a person speaking about, I would say, rap, sometimes the gangster music, as they say, you realize that they're always promoting pow. And when you're watching these students who behaving a little bad, the type of music they listen to have a deep effect on them. Right now, that is a minor, because they will say that some persons may listen to that music, and then after, you know, they're normal, they're calm. Again, but their majority, if you watch at the statistics, persons who listen to aggressive music or speaking about harm or injury, harm to do these things, okay? Your home life, as I was saying, speaking aggressively to someone. Now, I have also seen that when a parent speaks aggressively to a child, the child comes and speaks with their friends like that. I've seen it from, I was teaching since 2004, so that's 20 years I've been teaching, and I've seen that, and I've noticed that when persons speak aggressively, parents speaking aggressively to the children, they eventually start mimicking those same things. So as a parent, you know, Pastor said I have 2 young daughters, so I'm very mindful of how I speak to them, because I remember speaking roughly to my elder daughter, and she started speaking a little rough to her sister when she's correcting her. So I had to change the way that I speak to my daughter, because sometimes, you know, as a teacher, teaching secondary students, it might be a little aggressive, or a tone might be a little off. And I see my daughter trying to be like a man handling the daughter in how she speaks. And that is one thing that drew my attention. And I had to stop early on in my interaction with my daughters. So I could personally speak about that. Oh, okay. So possible causes of bullying from the teacher's point of view. The power dynamic. Sometimes, the teachers trying to ensure that they are in charge, a whole lot of authority within the classroom, because students may try to oppose them, and it will make fun. Students will make fun of the teachers. You have stress and burnout. I know many times I have snapped at students because I was too stressed, had the pressure of having to do all the particular work and so on, and it was stressful. And sometimes we would snap at the student. Inadequate training, teachers come into the system not really trained how to deal with a classroom, especially if the environment is a tough environment where there's a lot of aggression, students not listening or behaving, right? And I could tell you that I have taught in 4 different schools over the past 20 years, and all the schools I've been to have been a bit aggressive, especially now. And it is really difficult to deal with the students, especially if you don't have any training. So sometimes you have to advise the younger teachers how to deal with particular scenarios. Personal issues, you don't know what a teacher is going through, and they may really be snapping. And again, being with teachers, you know that they're going through certain stuff, and you would hear them, how they speak about students, how they interact with students, even with their teachers. You have cultural factors, lack of accountability. Sometimes the administration don't really correct a teacher on how they interact with students, how they speak to even teachers, the administration, and the teachers themselves. Misunderstanding of discipline, how to correct a student. Now, as we're on the topic of teachers, I want to say something that when I was early, probably within the 5th year of teaching, I normally would, if I see students speaking, I'll say, "What happened? You want a friend or what?" And I say, "Want a friend? Come and talk to," and I'll draw a hand. I don't know if you all remember the 90s. I had this thing, you want to talk to a hand? You want to talk to your hand? Talk to the hand. And I used to draw a hand and say, "Talk to Pamela or Hannah." And one of the times, I brought one of the boys, was giving a little trouble. He was being a little mischievous. And I brought him against the wall. I drew the hand, and I told him to stay there. And after the class, and the fellows were making fun of him. And after the class, the boy told me, "Sir, what you did really hurt me." So I said, "Well, if you're giving trouble, I had to kind of deal with you." And he said, "No." He said, "When you say I had no friends." And he said he has no friends. And I was kind of shocked, like, okay. I didn't really take him on and believe him. But afterwards, I said, "Let me try and watch this boy and see." And he always by himself. He'll try to harass somebody to make a little comment, but nobody really lining with him. And that made me check myself. Sometimes the little things he might try to bring a child, to correct a child. And, the other students took it as normal. Nobody felt bad. And like I said, I was doing it for a few years, about 4 or 5 years. And I always remember that. So even up to now, again, when I speak and interact with students, I be mindful of what I say. Because when I watch that boy, I always remember that boy, and I tell my wife this, because she's a teacher also, that something like this, we take it for granted, how we speak with persons, right? So even teachers can make mistakes. I made a mistake. You may make a mistake. But again, we have to check ourselves to make that correction, right? So I have all here, just point 6, signs how to identify if someone is being bullied, and signs to look out. These signs may be physical marks, such as unexplained bruises, scratches, broken bones, and healing wounds or scabs on their body. Fear of going out to school, joining school events, being anxious or nervous, having new friends in school, losing friends suddenly, clothing, electronics, or other personal belongings being lost or destroyed, asking for money, and low academic performance. Absenteeism. Students are being absent a lot or reserved because of they're afraid to interact with persons. These are little signs that teachers will look for, right? So if you don't want to interact with somebody, or you're always to yourself, these are little signs you could look for even within your circle with your friends. Again, the adults also. But I want to pass on to Sister Michelle right now.
Okay. Before Sister Michelle takes over, we heard what Brother Anthony explained about what is bullying. All right, so just a little note, if you all have a question and you remember it at this point in time and you want to ask, we just want to give you the opportunity. Now we have question and answer session after, but at this point, if there's anything you want to ask Brother Anthony, now you can ask before you forget. All right? So far we good then? All right, good. So Sister Michelle is going to take over from this part.
Good night, everyone. Okay, so we heard from Brother Anthony about some of the physical signs that we can observe in persons who are bullied, all right? But physical signs are usually a manifestation of something a bit deeper, all right? Where you know, the mental and emotional impact of emotional state of a person is thrown off balance. And these are where the signs are manifested. So I'm going to touch a bit on the psychological impact of bullying. And all that means is the impact of the emotional and mental state of the person who is being bullied, as well as the bullied, the person who is bullying, do the bullying, right? Slide, please. Ooh, all right. So my glasses are not good enough to see from this far, so I'll be reading from my phone. All right, so we will touch on the victim first, and we'll look at some short-term impacts of bullying. And what we will see here is that what psychologists would say is that bullying would lead to a heightened sense of anxiety and fear in their victims, all right? Because victims tend to feel very unsafe in environments where persons are constantly attacking them, all right? And so you can look at it almost like a progression. When it starts, the person starts to feel anxious, there's fear, and then if someone continues to attack them, there's low self-esteem starts to come in. Because a lot of times bullying can be verbal as well. And persons, we was hearing from Brother Anthony, they would pick on physical features. So something that you may be insecure about. All right, so you will see low self-esteem coming in. And what it does, it erodes confidence and self-worth. And in that, when someone's confidence and self-worth is being constantly diminished, especially in children, you would start to see it in their academic performance. Children who were once grade A students, always coming first in class, all of a sudden reach to the bottom of the class. And you want to know what's going on. Sometimes children don't talk. But that is one sign that you can look for to see that maybe there is something going on there. Right? Next slide, please. And some of the long-term impacts, because when we talk about the psychological effects, they're short-term and they're long-term, right? Short-term is a little more immediate, that leads into long-term impacts if it's not dealt with appropriately and it's not dealt with in a timely manner. And some of that will be depression and what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, all right? And what that simply is a mental health condition that is caused by an extremely stressful or terrifying event or events, all right? So either being part of it or witnessing it can cause flashbacks, insomnia, nightmares, sweating, trembling, nausea, stomach aches, and all those different things. And persons who experience bullying over a longer period of time can experience chronic health problems. So they are at an increased risk for headaches, stomach issues, and just overall poor mental health. So as I was slide please. Thank you. So as I was mentioning before, not just the victim experiences psychological impact from bullying. The person who is actually doing the bullying or the bully also experiences psychological effects. And some short-term effects that the bully would experience would be what we call aggression reinforcement. All right? Now, what this simply means is that the bully may see that the aggressive behavior is an effective way to get what they want. And a lot of times, bullies learn this in their environments. So there's a social learning theory called Bandura. Albert Bandura coined this term social learning theory, and what he is saying is that children learn in their environment. It's called social learning. They see what their people do around them, and they mimic it, they imitate it. And a lot of times, these behaviors are learned in the home because the family unit is the first, is the foundation of society. Children are born into families. Families culture children, meaning they teach them the norms, what is normal in society, what is acceptable in society, and how to deal with stress. So, Brother Anthony would have touched on it. If a child or children see you behaving aggressively, speaking, roughing up, even physically, if there's violence in the home, they will imitate because they think that is the way to get what they need and what they want. And children who are also bullied in the home, all right, they lose their power, their sense of self within the home, and therefore they feel like they need to take back that power, take back that sense of self. So what they do, they bully someone who they believe are weaker than they are, right? And what we would see in bullies as well is poor academic performance, all right? They often show lower school engagement. And a lot of times too, sometimes it can be that they may have a learning challenge that is undiagnosed. And because they cannot keep up in school and in class, they tend to be the class clown. So they're funny, and they like to have fun, and not just the class clown, but again, aggressive as well. So you can go either way on that spectrum. All right, so those are some things that you want to look out for. All right, and the bully is also at an increased risk of substance abuse. That's because they need something to cope. Remember, I would have said a lot of times the bullies are experiencing challenging home lives. So how are they going to cope with that stress? The parents are unavailable. They can't talk to their parents. They may not want to talk to their friends for being ashamed. So they are more susceptible to people who will welcome them in. And you know who welcomes them in a lot of times? Gangs. Gangs welcome them in. And that's how they get kind of caught up in that life. Come take a smoke, take a drink. And to feel that kinship, to feel that love, they gravitate towards it and get caught up in it. And some of the long-term effects of bullying would be increased risk for criminal behavior, as I was mentioning, all right? And that behavior grows into adulthood. Because you'll be surprised at how loyal they become to these gangs. You see how you are loyal to your families? Your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, aunts, uncles. That's their family. And they will do what that group says. And what ends up happening as well, too, is that you would see that they have difficulty in relationships. All right? Bullies often struggle with empathy. Empathy is another trait that we learn in the home. So if it's not at home, where are they going to learn it from, right? And because that lack of they have that lack of empathy, or they lack empathy, then it's difficult for them to relate to other persons. It's difficult to relate to the person that they are bullying. So when they see that person crying, they don't understand it. They feel empowered by it. They may feel empowered by it. But to understand and have that empathy for them, it may be lacking. As well as, and also, bullies will also have a higher likelihood of mental health issues as well. Depression, anxiety, and antisocial personality disorder. And what that means is that they do not know how to relate to persons in society. They are the oddballs. They just don't know how to fit in, so they become aggressive. Because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to exist in cultural spaces, in social spaces, in friendships. So while a lot of times we speak about bullying, we always focus on the victim. We have to think about the perpetrator as well. because that person is simply a person who may be misunderstood, suffering some type of trauma, some type of emotional distress, and also needs help. And the way to fix that is to be that safe space. As parents, I want to encourage you strongly. Learn your children, be a safe space for them so that they can talk to you. I know we can get, with life, you know, things are very difficult. It could be very heavy, and you don't have the patience sometimes. You're human, we understand. But sometimes it's good to take a little time out. Say, I'll get back to you in a minute. Just breathe and address the situation. Because kids are watching when you think they're not. And they learn when you think they are not. That'll be, and I'll hand it over to Brother Anthony now. Oh, the moderator, sorry.
Hey, so we are moving on. We heard from Sister Michelle. And any questions? No questions? Nothing, no concern or confused about anything so far? All right, well, I trust that you guys are writing down your questions, all right? So in case you want to, you know, bring it forward. All right, so we heard from Sister Michelle, and now we're going to hear from Brother Ryan, and he's going to take from this part. Oh, Brother Anthony? Okay, go ahead, Brother Anthony.
Thank you. So, Sister Michelle, thank you for that. That was really well explained. So, some of the things I would have touched on, you know, she would have went more deep into it. And we spoke about what is bullying, again, the different types of bullying, how bullying takes place on different platforms, the indirect and direct and cyberbullying. I want to talk about what to do if you as a student are bullied or if you are a parent of a bullied child. First point is listen to your child openly and calmly. And Sister Misha mentioned just now that to get into your child's life, to find out a little bit, even there's a few moments, spending, to say 2 minutes, it's like, how was the day? What happened in school? Anything but in your trouble, you have to learn your child. Sometimes you may see your child laughing, all of a sudden you see your child is sulking, sad. And again, as a parent, my little daughter in ECC, I won't say which school, she had a little tango with a bully in his school, actually. But my daughter is also a little aggressive. Those who know her would see she likes to speak, but she also will stand up for herself. And so I noticed she was a little sad over the past few days, and I spoke to her, and she said how this boy hit her. So obviously, here, a boy hit your girl child. They want to go in school, and had to remember, okay, how to behave. So I went to speak to the teacher. The teacher said, yes, an incident took place in this class. They're trying to address it. Nothing came out big. Then the very next day, I heard my daughter had to fight with the boy because the boy was bullying the girls in the class, in the little group of them. And my daughter attacked the boy and caused some little thing. So I was just remembering, as Pastor said, I had to learn how to teach my daughter how to interact, how to deal with bullies at that age. She was 3 years old, 4 years old. At that time, the boy was in the second year going to leave school. So my daughter now there, and I was so angry, like this is what she experienced already, you know. So I had to learn how to read my child when she was all jolly, and then all of a sudden she was just so pensive. It's like my daughter would be like, my daughter talk, you know, and always interacting. So as Sister Michelle said, it's so important to know your child. Take that moment to just ask the child, even if it's just a minute, to say, how was the day? Come and sit down with me to drink a cup of coffee, tea, whatever you drink with your children, eat. Those little moments are important for a parent and for a child. Reassure your child. That means that you should believe them, but also find out exactly what took place. So just say, well, nah, you're not really making sense. I don't believe you. You're sure boy, sure girl. Find out exactly what happened. Don't both the child and say, well, you're stupid or call them anything or you allow that to happen, because you don't know what the circumstances or the environment that child is in. Okay? Talk to the teacher or the school, and now I have point 3. We talk to the teacher or the school, and then point 4, report to the police. So as a secondary teacher, I just want to say this. You're supposed to have another slide where I'm going through the directions and the format it should go to follow. But I want to say this first of all. The first step is always to speak to the teacher. Don't go and make social media posts, and that will make things worse. Or start a rant or threaten the teacher, threaten the child, parents, things like that. Always go to the teacher to find out exactly what is taking place with your child. If you have to write a formal little complaint, so at least you have something in writing. Because, I mean, and Brother Ryan will speak about this, about the legal aspects of it, and we always try to follow the protocol to say you have stuff in writing, the chain. You go to speak to the form teacher, the principal, the dean, and you have something in writing, so at least you are there. I would always recommend to parents, if something is taking place, please go and get a police report if it's aggressive kind of bullying. Because if something happens, because of how the Ministry of Education process is very long, it's tedious, it's slow, very, very slow. Something may happen tomorrow, and then you're saying you're waiting for ministry to find out the school supervisor. Even if you go and make a complaint to the school supervisor, at least you have some things in writing that you will make an effort. First thing they'll say, well, dad wasn't doing anything. You didn't get any complaint from the parents, how we will know? So once you see things like that, is aggressive, please make a police report. Now, I'm saying this as a parent, not as a teacher now, as a parent. Please go and make a police report. So at least you have things in writing, and there's some aspect of the legal side to it. What to do if your child is a bully? Now, many times we will not really consider how the bully feels. But as I was preparing for this, I realized, I should really try to be more, compassionate towards the bully also. And we need to learn to communicate with the child to find out exactly the best way to help that child. We also need to help the child to how to cope with reasons why the child may be aggressive. Try to understand or let the child know that, you are also loved, that you could also do well as this particular student. Examine your own self. We mentioned that sometimes the environment has an effect on the child, how they behave, how they interact with others. So sometimes you may be bullying your own child, and that child becomes a bully in school to others. So you need to check your own self and give consequences and opportunities to make amends. Sometimes a person may be a bully, but may grow out of it, may make a mistake. And if you don't correct the child wouldn't really know. And if you give this child consequences, the child know what he's doing is wrong, and that there's some form of punishment to it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to beat the child, but, no tablet, no money, no allowance. You can't go to the party, things like that. Now, I want to move on to point 8, which is the MOE, Ministry of Education, the view on bullying. Now, I would ask if Sister Jen could take this to pass over to Brother Ryan, because you'll find out after he gives his side why it takes so long for the Ministry of Education to actually deal with any form of bullying.
I just, sorry, I'm sounding loud. All right, Brother Anthony just mentioned some things there where, the steps that you would have to take if, bullying is taking place with your child and another child. And you're saying, so you go to the teacher and make that report, and even the principal or whatnot. But you personally have to go to the police if that's happening. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, because again, sometimes a little teasing and so on may take place. I mean, that is not need for a police report. But when there's aggression, because of the process is long, and then something can happen within that same day. So it is important to cover yourself. After you speak to the form teacher, I would always say, go to the form teacher, speak with the form teacher, the dean, and the principal.
Right.
And if you have to write a letter, or if you're able to write a little note to say this is what happened, he came today to address it. And then I would always strongly recommend, please go and make a police report. So at
Okay.
least, and inform the teacher, the school, that this is the step you're going to take next. So at least they will know. Sometimes when they hear police, they will want to try to go and deal with it as quickly as possible. So I would recommend that, yes.
Okay, thank you. So we don't go directly to the parent. We understand that. There are steps to be taken to get that problem solved, all right? So we don't go directly to the parent. All right, so we're going to hear more on this as we continue, and Brother Ryan is going to take it from this part.
Hello, testing. All right, good night, everyone. Greetings, Pastor, greetings, First Lady, attendees. Notice I'm using a heavier tone because this is how I usually speak when I'm addressing the public as a police officer. Just kidding, guys, just kidding, guys. I find all looking a little too serious, so I still am lighten up the moment. So, you have heard what all the different aspects of bullying. I am here to bring a little legal outlook, more or less when you have to deal with police who just swallow up the face and watch all from my desk, right? But more importantly, we would go into a little bit of what are the acts that constitute bullying. So first thing first, bullying is not in the law, it is actually categorized as harassment. And you would find this in the Offenses Against the Persons Act, Chapter 1108. So it has been amended in 2005 to be called harassment. So we would go into what is harassment, and these are the things that as a parent you can look for, that if it is happening to your child, that it is actually harassment. So to start, and some of these things you might be surprised to know that it's in the law. So firstly, following someone. Following someone is an act of harassment. Making visual recordings of someone, that is an act of harassment. Stopping or accosting a person, which means basically the same thing. Accosting is just a fancy word. They had to put it in law to make lawyers look like they're spending all their years in school for some purpose. No offense, Sister Yolanda. Watching someone, yes, watching someone in a way that is not pleasing to them. Loitering near, hindering, or preventing access. So if you're blocking the pathways of someone, that is a form of harassment, like standing in their way. They're just lining in the corridors, like, schools have corridors, you're lining in the corridors waiting for them, or apartment building, you're just waiting to block them. That is a form of harassment because it happens either by the residents, workplace, or any public place. Entering someone's property or interfering with their possessions. So if you're walking in somebody's yard, that is a form of harassment. If you're leaning upon their vehicle, that is a form of harassment. Now, I just say vehicle, but possession, we could understand what possession means. It could be if you're interfering with their bags in school. That is a form of harassment, without their permission, that of course. And making contact with the person. Now, this covers a lot. The law is very open about this. They also specify what it is, but when you hear making contact with a person, whether, and this is actually in the law, whether a gesture, directly, verbally, by telephone, computer, a post, and when we say post, we know that means maybe a post on social media platforms, or in any other way. So that is actually stated in law, the word in any other way. This is verbatim what I'm telling you. So you can harass someone by these ways, giving offensive material or even leaving it for them. So, Brother Ryan brushing his teeth by the window, I see all my teeth and thing, and you leave a picture with me with a arrow pointing what she brown teeth, something like that. This is something that is, you left for me a picture of that with offensive material on it. That is harassment. You could either give me it, you could either bring it to me, or you could either share it on some public way. That is harassment. So, acting in any way that could be reasonably expected to cause distress, right? So there's a broad brush when it comes to harassment, because no one can tell how you feel about something, but if it offends you, that is where it could cause harassment to you, or any close relative to you. Could be, so, sometimes you have a partner or a friend and you fall out with him, but you want to tell your next partner or friend, you see, he's a locho, some kind of thing he's telling about you. that could be harassment because it's somebody who near and dear to you. He using that person to get to you. That is harassment already as well. Now, there's also something called a course of conduct. But before I get into course of conduct, I'll get into course of conduct. Course of conduct, what happens to it is when the act is committed at least twice. So there's the instance where it's an offense to do it one time, but if it's a continuation of it or you continue doing it, that is called course of conduct. And the reason why I mention that is because under this act, a police officer can either charge someone summarily or indictably. Now, there is two big words, which basically means if you get charged on a summary conviction in the magistrate court, it could mean you could go in front of the magistrate, give an explanation, and plead guilty. But when you charge indictably, you would not allowed to plead. You would have to go in front of a judge with a jury, and there would have to be a trial. Now, why I mention that is on summary conviction of harassment, you can face $2,000 fine and or 6 months imprisonment. So if the magistrate deems it to the point where it has cost you a lot, they could actually send the person to prison for the offense. Now, if it is a course of conduct or harassment, and inclusive of that is the fear of violence. When you see the fear of violence, if the person makes a threat and say, well, boy, I'll wait you some tap, I'll bust your head, or whatever words he uses or whatever actions he does to incite fear in you of violence, it will then escalate and they could charge indictably, where the person being charged could face a fine of $10,000 and or 5 years imprisonment. So that is basically laying out the consequences, right? So apart from the consequences, we're going into what could be done. So there are different avenues for redress. There's a protection, something called a protection order. I know plenty of people must hear about a protection order, but maybe not sure what it is. What protection order is basically an application you make to the court stating that someone is harassing you in some way, and there is in fact fear from you of that person. The court can actually order or make an order, an interim order, that the person committing the offense would have to adhere to. Now, what this does is the court is actually instructing this person to not do a particular act. So if anything mentioned before the person is doing, and you get a protection or you apply for a protection order and the magistrate grants it, whatever act that person has done, they are restrained from doing so. And if they do so, all you have to do then is go to the station and say, well, this person, you would have the paper, actual order, and say this person has breached this order, and the police will arrest immediately and carry that person before the magistrate, where they will face jail time. That is how that order does. Now, you see in there on the slide compensation. You might wonder, well, what compensation you could actually get? Why would there be compensation if they just tell you have a big eye or a big nose? Where you getting a compensation for that for? But harassment goes so far as to there can be loss of earnings, because if it happens at work, you may not want to go to work the next day, so you can have loss of earnings causing you to not go to work and not make $1 where you're supposed to. Medical expenses, you know, and I'm not talking about when your wife quarreling with you and you get a headache and Panadol. We ain't talking about them medical expenses all, yeah? Or if your husband talking to you, like, use wife that could get licks here, and just, well, let's take one. Moving our accommodation expenses in the event that you have to move. Well, this is on severe cases of harassment. You have to move out of the area and you have to go and rent somewhere else or live somewhere else or buy a house somewhere else. The magistrate wouldn't obviously grant you any compensation and buy another house, but it could assist in some of the costs or any reasonable legal costs. Now, the magistrate court is allowed to grant up to $15,000. I'm not sure if they reason that anytime, but basically that is the maximum. And you don't usually get maximum from them, but that is the causes of redress. Now, this law has been amended in 2005, right? But for the people like myself who grew up watching Galaxy Rangers and not Dragon Ball Z, so for the older people, we didn't have much cybercrime taking place back then, but in 2009, actually the 3rd of April in 2009, the police service tried something and they introduced something called the cybercrime unit. Now, why the cybercrime unit is important? For the younger folks, there's different ways to harass someone. And it's more prevalent now, cybercrime, than actually going by TT post and posting a hateful letter to somebody they will get 5 days after. It's not like that anymore. Or calling somebody and that *69 dial you're using your ring phone to call somebody and hang up on them. All them little chupiness has happened a long time. It's not like that anymore. It's a little more advanced. And the police service has introduced the cybercrime unit that actually is empowered by Section 30, which is the actual act on harassment. So they really stated out the reason for it is being that from March 2018 to March 2019, there would have been 104 reported incidents of online harassment, 56 reported cases of online bullying, and 83 reported cases of defamation of character. So this is just small statistics because at 2018 it was not that big of a deal according to the statistics, but it was increasing. It's something new to them, so the police rightfully did put a unit in place for it. And I would just say the ways that people have cyber attacks, social media platforms and social engineering, they use that to get your information. This is more prevalent in the actual, believe it or not, prison service, where the prisoners actually use the smartphones we won't go into that, but and they go on Facebook and they find the prison officer's name and find a family where they live in and send threats to that person. So they can use social media to get your information. And that's just one example of it. There's something called targeted phishing attacks. This is where they use social media for scams and to exploit your fear and anxiety. And we actually seen recently, if you're aware of what is going on, something actually in the Kelly district where people use your information or your business and call you and say, well, if you do pay me X amount of money, that your son, Jason, would not make it home or something like that. They would use the information that they get from social media against you and incite fear and anxiety about it. This one may not affect us that much, but there's celebrity name misuse. People use celebrity names and make profiles of them and try to extort you in some way or use your fandom or what it's called, people who is a big fan of you to get their way out of you. You'll be amazed how much people fall victim to that. Site compromise, they use certain sites and they corrupt it and add malicious codes, so when you visit it, it would be able to withdraw your information without you even knowing it. Sometimes they send you messages on your phone that is able to hack your own phone and get some information from you if you listen or if you respond to them. Confidential information leak. This is where they take your personal information, they hack into your system somehow, take your personal information and they leak it all on internet and social media. And then there's online bullying, which we have heard a lot about. This could be anything from a Facebook post to literally videos to emails to people calling you and hurting you on social media, saying mean things about you. All this constitutes cyber crimes, and the law is very clear on it. And police would actually respond because they are empowered to do so. But just to reiterate, if it is your children you're talking about, there is a procedure to follow. First thing first, and this is for paper trail, you need to speak to the teacher or the person directly in charge of your child. And in the rare occasion that nothing is being done or it needs to be escalated beyond that, then you go to the police with your information and they would be able and ready to act on that information. And be sure to get a receipt in everything you're doing, because I can tell you, once you make a report in the station, a receipt must be produced. And they have a kind of excuse now, They say, well, we have no receipt book. Let them give you a paper with a signature and a stamp on it saying that it was there. This is for your own use in case you have to go to court, that there will be some record of information going to the court. And this might be anti-police, but make sure it is done for your own benefit. All right? I know I'll save all the questions for the police, but I'll pass it over to Reverend Jen now, so she'll take over.
Okay, so we've heard from the law, about the law, what we can do, how we can report, what cyberbullying is all about. If some of you never heard of it before, tonight you heard of it. And we are living in a world where we all must be aware of bullying across the board. We've heard from Brother Anthony how to identify, how to try to figure out or be open with our children, to look at their behavior, the changes, try to understand them. If you never had a conversation with your child, well, you need to start. Or just say, oh, he's being a child, or he's just being a boy, he's just being a girl. We need not to take behaviors, different behaviors that is not what your senior child usually do, for granted, as Brother Anthony said. So, he explained to, he knows his daughter, but there was something different about her in that particular time, and to hear what transpired. So we need to pay close attention to our children, to identify. Sometimes, they might come up with a mark or a bruise or a hit or a bust head or a pull here or something, and you need to inspect. Not today, some time ago, somebody was saying they usually would check their child's school bag, check their clothes, check their pockets, see if there's anything unusual about it, right? We heard from Sister Michelle that, the emotions that take place, the fear that comes into when you're being bullied, and you feel that you're all alone and there's no one there for you, but there is somebody, there is hope. But we have to encourage them that you need to be, if something happens, there's somebody that you can go to. In earlier times, you would find people that they're not open, they're afraid to speak what happens to them. And that is where you're being cornered in a dark space and you're being sinked deeper into what's happening to you. We heard from Brother Ryan, as you just heard, that there are steps to take place to go to the law. And they might not call it bullying, but it's harassment. And Brother Ryan does let's say like abuse or something. Would that fall under that, harassment?
Well, abuse, it falls on a section by itself, which is a bit different. So once there is physical harm done, that would be a whole different ball game with offenses.
Okay.
But the law does deal with it as well.
As well.
A little more serious than the harassment law.
Okay. So the floor is open. I see you all looking and you're watching and you're listening. I know you're listening, attentively. But is there any question you want to ask our panel? We have a question. Or Sister Yulan, you have one? All right. So it's okay, I can read it. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sister Yulan. All right. So I'm reading it as I see it here, right? As a teacher, or maybe from the psychological aspect. All right, okay. How do you deal with parents who refuse to see, refuse to see something their child or children is wrong in a situation? Would you say that this is a window for future bullying to develop? And how do you interact or bring children's behavior to parents like this who always go on the offense and see no wrong in their children? Understand that? Anybody can take that.
Okay, so good night again, everyone. I can say that that happens regularly in the school system. Many parents, sometimes the whole school know a particular student is being disruptive, a bully to terrorizing students, teachers, and sometimes when the parents comes in, it is no, it's your fault, it's the student's fault, it's everybody else's fault except the child. The child never do anything. Even they have video and proof, everything to show that the child has been doing all these things. As I say, I do my part because, again, the process is slow. And I always say I do my part where I do the paper trail. I call the parents, contact the parents. I take my own record of the offenses of the student, because what ministry requires is that they need to see a long paper trail. Then that, I mean, sometimes I'm saying if probably more than 20 offenses. And then afterwards, they want to know what you do as a teacher to try to help the child. And then afterwards, you have to go and speak with the, refer the child to a social worker, the counselor, which takes a long period of time also to actually take place. And then after they come back to deal with it. Now, concerning the parents, sometimes, you have to do what you have to do. You have to make sure whether the parents believe you or not, you have to make that contact. And I have done that many times. And once you make that contact, you could also now refer to the principal to say, well, this child has been so aggressive. The parents, the only meetings I have with the parents is not going anywhere, any no positive view or going forward with it. And you give your recommendation. And I, over the past few years, realized that I was like my paper trail, because my principal, not saying that, but I say my principal said, well, you never had a conversation with me. So as I always say, as per the conversation on this day, this is what I could recommend. And you didn't find out other persons also. So yes, I have had meetings with parents who see that the child, or think that the child don't do anything wrong, but you have to do your part. And that is the responsibility of the teacher and the other parents also, because once you have that there as a paper trail, you cover yourself.
Okay. Sister Misha?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So, with respect to the school social workers, so correct, if there is an incident that happening in school, most times cases would be referred to school social workers to help manage the situation. And as Brother Anthony said, it does take some time because, if I remember correctly, I think there is like one school social worker per, like I think 3 or 4 high schools. And a high school can have anywhere up from like 300, 400 to 600 children. So it will take quite a while to get to them. So in the interim, what does the person do? What does the parent do? Now, I will not advise, I would not say to that parent to confront the other parents. It would not be advisable, because as the question would have said, the other parent would be an aggressive person. And we would not want that situation to escalate into something more violent. What you can do is teach your child how to manage the situation in terms of coping with it, ignoring, walking away, and trying not to engage the bully. Because what I would have mentioned earlier is that this is a power struggle, like a power dynamic. It's happening here. And the bully is trying to get back some power. And sometimes when a child responds by crying or even aggression, they feel empowered. Oh, I got a response. Maybe because they are not getting any response at home. So what that does is feed into the cycle. So it is on the owner sometimes of the parent to teach the child. Now, if the behavior, the bullying is aggressive or violent, well, this would lead into Brother Ryan's territory. As you said, you report it to the police and let the legal authorities take care of it. All right, and I'll go back to the social worker. As a social worker as well, what we would try to do is speak with the child, the both of them, and see what is the issue and how we can deal with it. Because more often than not, there is some kind of pain there on the bully side as well, that we might be able to address, utilizing different techniques, counseling, things like that, to see if we can see a change in behavior. But at the end of the day, we cannot change people. You can only, look at yourself and change yourself and how you respond to those situations.
Now, part of the question here was asking, is this a window for a future bully to develop?
Yeah.
I would like to weigh in here. I tempted to say, you know, Malan, you know, you'll watch be on the tape. I don't know what Papa say, you know, Malan, I feel like Roger Alexander. But to weigh in here, what happens when a parent does not accept something that their child is doing wrong? It's one of the most dangerous things you can do for that child, because you are empowering this child to believe that he can do wrong and get away with it. Yeah. And what this does, it leaves this child with maybe a sense of entitlement somewhat, that they allowed certain things to get away with, and their parents would believe whatever they say. Now, what this leads to is the police having to deal with them later on, and I would be quite frank about it. We do have no nursery inside the station. When you reach there, it's cold steel, it's cold ground, it's men who just talk straightforward. There's no mommy and daddy inside there. And to be quite frank about it again, is police are not trained to deal with any kind of mental conditions. So we deal with it the only way we know, by showing strength and using force, sad to say. So that would just lead that child into a pitfall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. All right.
All right, so I have this question here. Brother Anthony spoke about the institutions having a formal way of dealing with it. In the workplace, there might be ways of dealing with it. You know, you report to a supervisor or report to a manager, and then it escalates into maybe a warning or something like that. But what happens when the abuse or the bullying takes place in a home or in a family environment? I'm speaking here about where the highest form of authority in a home, let's say like a parent or maybe like an uncle or a grandfather, who is supposed to be the one that you could turn to report something like this in a home setting. How does that change the dynamic? I'm saying this because I remember recently in the news where this 12 or 13-year-old boy couldn't find recourse in school. He didn't find recourse at home and ended up taking his life. How do we deal with that?
So that is one of the very unfortunate, distressing consequences of when we don't listen and we don't pay attention. This is why when I was giving my part of it, I was really encouraging persons to be a safe space and to pay attention to our young people when they say they're not coping well. And sometimes they don't talk, eh? So you have to be observant. You know, and what I would say is I would keep encouraging persons, try and find somebody. Even if you can't speak to your parents, there's no redress in school, sometimes even a friend, a peer who can advocate for you if you don't want to speak. Because there are higher authorities that you can go to. There's the Children's Authority that deals with situations like this as well. And they have anonymous, I believe there's some of them are toll free as well, phone lines that persons can call, like Child Line, suicide hotlines that persons can reach out to get counseling, free of charge and anonymously. So there are spaces that persons can get to avoid that eventuality. And I'll let Brother Anthony weigh in here now.
All right, so that's a very good question. So what happened is that even though persons may have all these, places to contact, we have to be there. We have to make sure and be there for students. Even if the child is somebody who is not experiencing bullying, but you inform that child. One of the things I do as a teacher, I try to be also firm, strict, but also let them know they can speak to me about anything. Something happened, come to me. Let me know. I'm here to help you. Now, I just want to relate something that my wife and I was talking about last week. As Pastor said, you had an issue at school. You can't really deal with it with the students. You have not really friends. You're getting the abuse from home. But you think you're going to a social worker, counselor, and you're getting help. So she was sharing with me that this child was having some trouble with fellow students. Then what happened is the girl is living at the aunt's home because the parents died. And when they went to the counselor, the child went to the counselor to speak and so on, share whatever it was supposed to be in private. The counselor went back and tell the guardian, or the aunt, what the child said. And the counselor, the aunt verbally abused the child, tell the child kind of thing. The student showed my wife what was said, heard the recordings and so on, all the name calling and so on. So sometimes you will not get it at home. So we have to ensure, and I would say for myself and us as a church, reach out to others, remind your friend, even if I know this boy and girl there, I was trying to talk to the boy there. I mean, I don't say that anything happened at home, but I try to say, hey, what's going on, boy? So at least, you can probably talk to me. Because when I first came here, he acknowledged me and said, hey, and you guy, I said, yes. Because I was always walking with my daughters and he will acknowledge, they will say hi. So he see me as somebody he know. So we had to try to make sure that persons around us are comfortable and be able to know that they could trust you. And that is one thing. If you break a student's trust, they will tell the next one, don't trust that teacher, because we can't trust him. As soon as you talk to him, let him go. So I think we as a church and persons have to ensure that the students around us are aware that they could come to you for help. Not just that they have things to go on, calling, but come to me because I could try to help you too. And we should make it our business as a church, as a Christian person, to try to make some form of recourse to the student to get some form of help. That's my take on it.
You have another question? Go ahead. Okay, before you say that, now, Brother Anthony, as that question Pastor put forward there, so there is, if you cannot reach to the person in your home, as the question is, there's the father, the grandfather, whoever, uncle, and they can't talk to them, we as a church make ourselves available, and like our Brother Anthony was saying, make himself friendly to the kids. You make yourself friendly to somebody, so they too could say, okay, maybe I can trust brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so. All right? So you're making, it comfortable when in a situation they cannot be comfortable in their own home. Yeah? All right, Sister Michelle.
Just to quickly add on to what Brother Anthony was saying before I asked the question, that was quite unfortunate with the counselor that we are not trained to do that. Confidentiality is a pillar of our profession. And so if you come across a counselor that is not keeping that confidential space, you can also report to their senior. All right, so I just wanted to kind of say that. And I have a question for Brother Ryan in terms of harassment. So we saw a lot of things with regards to what harassment can possibly be. And I'm assuming when you make a report, you need to have some form of evidence. Correct? So if we are not allowed to video record, because that would be illegal, because I saw that on the illegal thing, then how do we present evidence of harassment without breaking the law ourselves?
All right, so question is very valid. Good question. Usually, in the form of making a report of harassment, you would be required to give a statement. Now, we are a bit old school with the way we do things in the court, but that is the evidence. Your word, your statement, you would sign it. If you lie, it would be perjury, so you would be facing offenses yourself as wasting the police time and other things. So when you give your word and you make a report, they take a statement from you. Now, with a statement in hand, the police is empowered to go out, and due to the recent Commissions Act, that if the person just committed the act and they have a statement in hand, they can arrest the person and bring them before the court. So some people, and it happens more often than not, they give a report to the police, and when they're asked to stay, because of the tedious process, they're asked to stay to give a statement, they say, well no, just warn them now, because to save time. So that what usually goes on. But the correct thing, you go and make a report, you give a statement. It's very simple. We could empower ourselves and check on statements, and it's very simple. You just have to state your name, your age, your date, the date of the incident, the time of the incident, and generally say what happened, your account of what happened, and you signed it and you date it. You could even prepare that before you go to the station and give them that statement, and they would ask you to change if needed anything, or to adjust or to clarify certain things. They could ask that and add it on, and they will certify a statement, and they could go forward with the case. But most times people just want the police to go and rough up or buff up, as we know it, the other person, and they will be okay with that. But if you need to seek compensation, redress in the form of an arrest or maybe a fine in the court, giving a statement is the only form of evidence that to prevent continuity of the incident or of the person committing additional offenses. Right? Well, just to quickly add some context, that's my brother, but the principal of that school in particular is actually a part-time SRP. So he would have expedited a lot of things to get that quick result in this matter, and he would have understood the severity of the offense. So that's just add some context to that. But yeah.
So
All right, I
add
know that.
just one more thing. Sorry, Pastor. Pastor asked that question, and my brain is going in terms of what we can do for that child who may not be able to say anything to anyone who would have committed suicide.
Doesn't have someone in the home to go to.
Right, doesn't have someone in the home to go to. What I would say is that as counselors and as social workers, we have something called a duty to report. We assess a child. Let's say a child comes in and they speak to me, and they are telling me that they are being abused in at home. I have a duty to report. I report to the police, and I call Children's Authority. Because while it may be, you may not want to say, okay, remove the child from the home, he may not want that, but at the same time, we have to make that decision for that child to remove them from that home for their own safety. All right, so while, the child may not feel like there's recourse, and parent or anybody may not feel like there's recourse because the parents are the one who are the perpetrators, please know you can report to a social worker, or you can call Children's Authority, make an anonymous report, and they will investigate. If you do not want to get involved. So there are spaces where you can have intervention in a situation like that.
All right, so I see the time is rolling quickly towards 9 o'clock. And I know we have some children here, school children. Can I ask the school children to stand for a moment? Those that are behind, if you could just come out a little bit here. All right. Arvin is fast asleep. Yeah. All right. Any of you school children know about what we're talking about here tonight? Yeah, if you've seen it in your school or you have experienced it yourself, you know about what we're speaking about here tonight? Simon, you've seen bullying in your school? Taxin? He was one of the bully? Oh, okay. All right. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, the children. But Simon, I mean, his mommy said that he was bullied at some point in time. But out of the children here, have you been bullied in school? Any one of you? We know about Simon. Raise your hand. Or one person here. Jael, your hand kind of going up a little bit. Yeah? All right. Simon, without giving details, somebody just run a mic down in the back. Without giving details, Simon, tell us what happened. What kind of bullying it was. Somebody rough you up, somebody take your money. No details, no details. Simon, you're bullying your mommy there, you know. Kim, yeah, go ahead.
Something happened in school with something you said, with our next friend
Uh-huh.
about some coke bottle overflow. So what they and they two friends get like offended, right? The next one, whatever the other one say, but they must understand what it say. So they come, but he was on his side because they're not different.
Right,
and it had the
so
next one on the other side.
They took advantage.
Right, and they
Yeah.
come at him and put him on a headlock, real thing. Headlock without he seeing anything. Hold him down, it's two of them. Hold him down, and he tried to let go, and when he let go hard, he get about he fall on the table and he hit his head and it started to bleed.
Oh my.
So we take it more. I come in school. I was out road and I went to school one time.
And you would have done what?
And I went to the police. I
Right.
went to the hospital
What
first.
Anthony would have
then
said.
to the police
Right.
and then in school and that is
Okay.
the day. And then they take statement from his school first.
Right.
And all the boys who was in it, about 4 of them.
Aidan?
And nothing can come out of it.
All right. So Aidan, if you could tell us, not in detail, or maybe stand it if you know about the incident. Somebody took money from you, they rough you up, or what did they do?
Okay, so the was asking me for money, and then when I did give it to them, they did ask me for a snack, right? So when they go and buy, they say, "Oh no, and I'll use out all your money. I can't give it back. You give it back," and they're doing that every day. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And somebody, jail. Jail is, I know you moved to a new school. This incident is in your previous school or in your new school?
Is in a new school.
New school. All right. And so tell us without details, jail.
So like 3 boys going in the classroom. They go into my particular friend group and they started ask me for money.
Okay. So that's what we know as taxing in the school. All right, so good. Anybody in primary school? Okay. Okay. That's probably a fat boy now. Right, okay. Did the parent acknowledge that her son was doing something wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
She was blazing when she was.
All right. Anybody in primary school at the moment and you have a situation, Arvin? No? No, Avisha? No? Yeah? All right. All right. Sister Asha, you want to say no details? No? All right. All right, so you see, all right, children, sit down, please. Yeah?
You don't say anything. I don't know why.
Well,
Does anybody ask anything?
the thing is here,
Ask for money.
for money.
Yes.
All right. So you see, right here in this setting, some children don't want to talk about it. Avisha sat back down.
Yeah. And sometimes he have to eat his lunch in the washroom.
Oh,
When he buy his roti, he have to go and hide and eat it.
which school is this one? Secondary or primary?
This is what is it called? Ashya Boys.
Asha, all right. All right. So we may feel that this is a situation that is far from us, but it's not so far. Our own children are victims in the schools. Sometimes you may feel you know everything about what they're going through, but you may not. Because as Sister Lachman is saying, and like Simon did a while ago, they wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't. Brother Adil, you knew about the situation with jail? See? First time you hear about it? So you see what happens. The situation happens in school. Child doesn't talk about it. It continues to happen day after day. Happens for 1 year. Next thing, 7 years pass. And not a single thing is done. What happens with that child is that that child has a heap of psychological issues growing on him or her. How do we correct that? We learned this evening that there are ways to report the issue. There are ways to tell somebody that something is happening or something has gone wrong or we observe something. But what about if there's nobody to turn to? And that's where the church comes in. Nobody to turn to means we still have one more person to turn to, and that is God. The thing that we said this evening is that we will pray for our children that are here tonight. So let me ask those children to come. All our school children come. Parents come as well. Stand with your children. This may sound like something trivial, but it's not. And sometimes, sadly, we only understand it when our child is badly damaged, badly dealt with, or no longer here. And then we understand how serious this is. All right, can I ask the leaders to come as well? Presenters, come down and stand with these children here this evening. Jen.